This video summarizes our project about the exploitation of children in different countries, which were British colonies. The project is focused from the point of view of the subaltern, that in this case are the children. We are going to develop the exploitation of children in three main sectors that are the most extended ones. These sectors are the use of children as soldiers in wars, as victims of sexual exploitation, and also the role developed by children in plantations, mines, quarries, domestic servitude, KIA, fishing, and begging, which we call hard labor sector. Firstly, we are going to explain some causes that allow children to be in this situation of exploitation and abuses.
Now I'm going to explain some factors that drive these children to be child slaves. We are going to focus on two types of causes, pull factors and push factors. On the one hand, pull factors are related to historical and continuing dependence. It occurs when the economy of the country depends mainly on a specific typical product of the country, for instance, cocoa. This implies that the economy of the country depends on the exploitation of this product. That is why it is used child labor in these plantations, since they look for cheap labor. The profitability of these products does not depend on the price that the farmers want to put, as they cannot control that. It depends on the world prices. It also depends on possible natural conditions that can affect the success of these products. On the other hand, push factors are based in other aspects. The most important factor is poverty, since the origin of most of the trafficked children is from the poorest countries in the world, who travel abroad with the aim of finding jobs. By doing this, they could send money to their families in order to help them for daily subsistence because, in most of the cases, they need their children's earnings to survive. Another important factor is culture. In some countries, such as in the case of the African culture, it is not bad seeing the children's usage in farms. In some of these countries, education is so expensive for many families, so children have to work. As a result, these families normally send their children with another families, usually wealthy ones, in order to learn some skills, with the aim of making money or learning something useful. Now, we are going to explain another type of child slavery, which is how children are used as soldiers.
South Sudan is one of the places with the worst child labor exploitation of the entire planet. Childhoods have been devastated by wars children didn't start. They are easy targets to recruit for military purposes because they are vulnerable and can be easily influenced. In 2010, the conflict between Sudan's People Liberation Army and the armed group allied to David Yao Yao started. In this war, both the Sudan's People Liberation Army and the National Congress Party used children in military operations. Now, 2 years later, the recruitment of child soldiers continues. The militia groups recruit these children by manipulating them, telling them that they have to protect their community against the bad people who are trying to kill their loved ones. In other cases, they are just raped. For some demobilized children, it is hard to return home after being recruited, since some of them are forced by rebel groups to kill a family member in order to break the bond with their community. These child soldiers do not only take part in active combat, they also work as spies, porters, messengers, lookouts, and sex slaves, causing in each of these cases severe psychological trauma. It is very difficult to explain the experience of these children. That is why we have chosen the testimony of a boy who managed to escape from the recruiters. This is the case of Emmanuel Jal. He became a soldier after his mother's death, when he was just 7 years old. The militia groups brainwashed him into believing that his gun was now his mother, the only one able to protect him from then onwards. I wanted to kill my enemies. Also, I wanted the bike. It's one of the most heartbreaking quotes, as it resembles the thoughts of an average child despite its harsh reality. Nowadays, Emmanuel Jal is a famous hip-hop artist who writes and sings about his experiences as a child soldier. Some of his most famous songs are War Child and Emma. This last song is dedicated to the English social worker who set him free.
It's dedicated to a British aid worker, a brave woman who went to Africa, rescued over 150 child soldiers, and one of them happened to be me.
Now, we're going to focus on a matter of sexual exploitation of children in the 21st century.
Concerning with the matter of sexual exploitation, there are several ways of developing it. In our research, we have found cases of sexual exploitation in Egypt, Ghana, India, Malawi, Kenya, Sierra Leone, and Niger. In the case of Egypt, it is given a particular name to this kind of exploitation, which is summer brides. This term refers to Egyptian schoolgirls that came from poor families who marry foreigners for a price, and only for one season. Hundreds of underage Egyptian girls are entering temporary marriages with rich tourists from the Persian Gulf during the summer in return for money for their families. These marriages, which are originated by intermediaries, are not really officially binding. They end when the foreigners return to their own countries. Something similar occurs in the case of Ghana, where there is also a term that refers to the practice of this kind of sexual exploitation. This practice is called trukosi. It consists on taking young virginal girls into religious shires to correct the misdeeds committed by their families. These girls are subjected to sexual abuse. Every aspect of their lives is controlled by their priest, and they are not allowed to keep any money. Moreover, the girls' families must provide the girls with food and clothing. It is presupposed that when the girl has sex with the priest, she is having sex with the god who the priest serves. If the family refuses to give up their daughter, the belief is that terrible things will happen to them. If a girl dies in servitude, the family is required to send another virgin daughter to replace her. It is a form of ritual servitude that can last from a few months to several years. We also found cases of sexual exploitation in India, Malawi, and Kenya, where young girls are forced to early marriages and have to work to defend themselves. In cases where both parents are dead or that they abandon them, the children need to work in order to survive. Another country where we have found cases of sexual exploitation is Sierra Leone. Here, women and young girls are forced into prostitution. Finally, the last country in which we have focused on is Niger. In this country, like in Egypt and Ghana, it exists an extended practice known as wahaya. It consists on selling women and young girls into sexual and domestic slavery as the unofficial wives. They are sold by their masters to become concubines to wealthy men. Once sold, the girls are known as wahaya or fifth wives because they are additional to the 4 wives legally permitted in the country. The girls are treated as property and they have none of the legal rights of a wife and also are forced to sexual relations with the masters. Coming up next, we are going to deal with the matter of the labor sector, especially for those children who do not attend school.
In the case of the labor sector, we find different jobs for children who don't attend school and are bought by traffickers. The most important one is on the plantations. These plantations are also divided into 4 types: tobacco, tea, cocoa, and cotton. In the case of Malawi, the most extended work for children is in these plantations, mainly tobacco ones. Boys are trafficked from southern Malawi to tobacco farms in Malawi's northern and central regions.
Smoking kills. It's not only killing you, the smoker, but it's also killing most people that are involved in production of that cigarette that you are smoking. It's killing those people who are handling it in production. And it's killing their hopes, their dreams. So their very dignity is being terminated by this production of the cigarette that ends up on the market in the West.
In the tobacco plantation, as we could see in a documentary, children suffer intoxication with pesticides and fertilizer, such as what is known as the green tobacco sickness, which is a type of nicotine poisoning caused by the absorption of nicotine from the surface of wet tobacco plants. Children work in the plantations to help their families, but they are victims of abuses and exploitations due to the fact that they are a cheap workforce for the landlords. However, in Malawi, there are also tea plantations, which have better conditions for the workers. They earn more money, have an access to education, and the most important fact is that there aren't any children working there. In Ghana, we find children working in cocoa plantations, where they suffer different illnesses because cocoa trees are treated with pesticides and fungicides, and they do not have protecting clothing. Clearing vegetation and harvesting paths can also be hazardous for them, because these tasks are often done using machetes. In Ghana and Nigeria, children take part in gold mining. They suffer extremely dangerous conditions due to the frequent mine collapses, poison dust inhalation, and exposure to toxic chemicals, and also in the extraction phase, they are used as carriers of oats and waste products. In Egypt, the most important job for children is in the cotton fields. They face routine beatings, which are supposed to make them work more efficiently, while they are exposed to extreme high temperatures and pesticide gases. Apart from working on plantations, children take part in mines, like in the case of India, Sierra Leone, Ghana, and Nigeria. In India, children help to find diamonds. The same occurs in Sierra Leone, where children form 72 of workers on these mines, which are the country's source of income. In Ghana and Nigeria, children take part in gold mining. They suffer extremely dangerous conditions due to the frequent mine collapses, poison dust inhalation, and exposure to toxic chemicals, and also in the extraction phase, they are used as carriers of oats and waste products. Related to the work on the mines, they also work on the stone quarries and construction in India, Kenya, and Nigeria. Another job which is very extended among children is domestic servitude. These children are known as restabek. They are typically young girls who are sent by their parents to work for a household as a domestic servant, because their parents don't have the resources needed to maintain them. A lot of parents send their children to be restabek, expecting that the children will live a better life. They are sent to live with more capable families, often their own relatives or friends. However, many restabeks don't receive proper education and are abused. This practice takes part in India, Malawi, and Kenya. Taking into account only girls, in Ghana exists a practice known as kayaye, in which these girls are used as potters or bearers who have migrated from a rural community to urban cities in search of work in Ghana. They are involved in head potteries, carrying products from one place to another, and also they suffer sexual abuses. Children are also trafficked in fishing in Malawi and Ghana. They are sold into a life of forced labor, malnutrition, and abuse. Traffickers buy them from poor families who are persuaded to send their children to work in deplorable conditions on fishing boats with tasks like paddling boats or hauling nets. The last practice that we want to mention is begging in Nigeria. Children who are known as talibes are sent to Quranic teacher marabouts to receive education. However, some of these children, who are mainly boys, are forced by their teachers to beg on the streets to pay them. The abuses of children in all these sectors drive them to suffer some consequences.
These consequences are not merely physical, because it does not only affect the well-being of these children, it also affects to their emotional scars. Because of that, child slaves become more emotionally isolated and less confident of themselves. That is why there are some cases of children that suffer this practice who, when they reached their adulthood, started to write their own experience and publish it in books in order to tell the world their suffering. Finally, we will mention some acts that are trying to end child slavery.
Through history, many constitutions and organizations have tried to stop child labor exploitation. There are many acts that resemble the needs of children of the entire globe. Sadly, many of these acts are not fulfilled by the authorities, as bribing is still at the order of the day. Now I'm going to quote some of the acts we found relevant to our project. The Mines Act of 1952. The act prohibits the employment of children below 18 years of age in a mine. The Child Labor Prohibition and Regulation Act of 1986. The act is the one most debated regarding children in India. It outlines where and how children can work and where they cannot. The act defines a child as any person who has not completed his 14 years of age. The act establishes that no child can work for more than a certain amount of hours, depending on each particular kind of establishment. Children are not permitted to work for more than 3-hour stretches and must receive an hour break after 3 hours. The Juvenile Justice, Care and Protection Law of the Children Act of 2000. This act deals with the exploitation of juvenile or child employee. It procures that people who have children working in hazardous conditions keep him bondage and withholds his earnings or uses such earnings for his own purposes shall be punishable with imprisonment for a term which may extend to 3 years and shall also be liable for fine. The Right of Children to Free and Compulsory Education Act of 2009. It provides for free and compulsory education to all children aged from 6 to 13 years to 14 years old. The Modern Slavery Act of 2015. This act was published the 7th of May of 2015. This act requires all businesses to describe the steps they have taken to ensure that child labor, slavery and human trafficking is not taking place in any of their supply chains or their own businesses, or they must disclose that they have taken no such steps. To conclude our project, we want to highlight the connection between British colonialism and the current state of those countries who once belonged to the great empire in the 19th century. As explained before in the description of the causes for child exploitation, there are push and pull factors for the situation to happen. Now, in connection with the British Empire, a pull factor was the implantation of the British Society, which condemned the colonies to focus on one economic activity related to commercial interests. A push factor, on the other hand, is the extreme poverty these countries find themselves in nowadays, as an effect of colonization. What we really want to say is that the terrible situation in which so many children find themselves in nowadays is a consequence of what we, Western people, did in the past, and it is only fair to try to make it up to them by helping to fight for justice. We have to be aware about the reality that surrounds us and don't look away. There are several websites on the net where we can find information about how to help. There are many ways in which we can contribute to this cause, like boycotting corrupting products and donating money to campaigns, but most of all, by spreading the word among as much people as possible. Thanks for watching.